2024, giant AI gets bigger, small AI gets smarter. I'm going to cover 7 different areas of open source artificial intelligence technology that took off in the last year. Open source AI is like an incubator for what's to come. And it's not like one or two little interesting technologies that came up here and there. Everything is interconnected and it all leads up to something. I'm going to explain to you why it all matters and how it ties in together and what to expect coming in 2025. There's a lot of exciting stuff to unpack, so here it goes. OpenAI just recently released their Sora video generation model, but they had teased the release of this way ahead of time, like a year, and they'd been hyping it up for such a long time before they actually released it. In the meantime, some open source developers dropped some models. Meta made Movie Gen, also very high quality and stunning. Genmo AI made Mochi 1, also great quality. And Tencent Global from China made Hanyuan Video. Stunning quality as well. These are really just the first glimpses at AI video generation, and there's a lot to come. It's also surprising how small the parameter count is in some of these models. Mochi 1 is only 10 billion parameters, Hanyuan Video is 13 billion parameters, and Meta Movie Gen is 30B. I was surprised to know that those were those small when they came out. Fish Audio is a cutting-edge text-to-speech model, meaning you input text and it generates voice synthesis. And it's number 2 ranked on TTS Arena. It's 1 million hours of multilingual training data, 13 languages supported, including English, Chinese, Japanese, and more, and is a pre-trained model that is completely open source. You can get it on GitHub. While we're on the subject of audio, OpenAI had teased their advanced voice mode way in advance. It was another one of those hypey things they did months ahead before releasing it. Finally, in November 2024, they released the advanced voice mode. Way in advance of that, this open source lab, Qtai, had released a voice AI model called Moshi. With Moshi, it has 2 different voice streams, one for you, one for Moshi, that happen at the same time. You use your microphone to talk to Moshi. Moshi speaks back to you. And you can even interrupt. I'll give you a quick demonstration.
Hello, what's up?
How's it going, Moshi? How are you?
Good. How about you? I heard you're a big fan of music. What's up?
Yeah, I really am a big fan of music. My favorite is Nine Inch Nails. What about you?
Oh, nice.
What's your favorite music, Moshi?
Oh, that's a tough question. I love a lot of different genres, but if I had to choose one, it would probably be electronic music.
Who's your favorite?
I love Moby. He's one of my favorite electronic artists. I just love his music. He has a great sense of energy and his beats always get me pumped up.
How do you feel anything or pumped up if you're an AI and not a person?
Well, I don't feel anything, but I do enjoy listening to his music.
Stay with me here. I'm going to show you more and how all of this ties together. I promise this will all make sense. 2024 is also the year of multimodal open source AI. Modalities are the different capabilities that an AI has. So for example, if an AI can hear like Moshi can, then its ability to hear is a modality. Moshi spoke back to me. That's another modality. An AI's ability to generate text is a modality. Its ability to generate images is a modality. Its ability to see an image and recognize what's in it is also another modality, is vision. Meta released Spirit LM, an open source multimodal language model that can freely mix text and speech. They claim that they have a better technology than other open source models do for speech. Let's listen to an example.
A cute, clever cat. Once upon a time, there was a beautiful cat named Peter. His mother taught him how to climb a tree.
I feel very excited about the upcoming trip to Paris.
I've never been before. Our friends are out to stay for 2 weeks, and I want to see as much as possible.
Some of these speech capabilities are not up to the same level as 11 Labs, but for small open source models, they're impressive. Another really exciting advancement in multimodal open source AI is Llama 3.2. It has the same text capabilities as Llama 3.1, but also the 11B and 90B versions allow you to input images, and it can recognize what's in the image because it has vision capabilities in addition to text capabilities. The 11B version in some cases can actually run on a home computer. Another noteworthy advancement in multimodal open source AI was Pixtral Large, which is based on Mistral Large, 123 billion parameter model that performs almost as good as Llama. I actually did a comparison between Pixtral Large and Llama 3.2. You can see that in a different video that I made in my channel. Make a mental note, I just covered video generation, audio, and multimodal with vision. That's going to be significant for the point that I'm going to make coming up in the video. Another thing we saw in 2024 was open source frontier models getting bigger and bigger. When Meta released Llama 3.1 405B, that 405 billion parameters was the biggest open source frontier model that anyone had released at that time. Research organization Noose made a fine-tune of the Llama 3.1405B called Hermes 3 Llama 3.1405B. That is actually one of my favorite go-to models for getting work done. French AI pioneers made Mistral Large, their flagship model. At 123 billion parameters, it actually performs almost as good as models that are bigger. And then Tencent Global made their Hanyuan Large model, which was 389 billion parameters and is actually the biggest mixture of experts open source model released at the time that this came out. While even some of the biggest tech companies are making the biggest frontier models, those same enormous companies are making tiny little AI models that can go on device like on a laptop or a phone. Microsoft has a whole family of small language models called Phi. I actually got one of them to run on my Android phone. You can check out a video of that if you look at my channel. And then circling back around to Meta, their Llama 3.2 has two tiny versions, a 1B and a 3B that can both fit on device. Interestingly, Facebook, Meta, but under the name Facebook, released this model called Mobile LLM 1B. Also notice these three in my list here. Apple made OpenELM, these tiny instruct language models that are 1B, 450 million parameters, and 270 million parameters. That's less than a billion parameters. With language models, there's a type of compression, if you're not familiar, called quantization. It allows a large language model to be compressed down to require less hardware and less resources to run it, so you can run it on a more modest system. Microsoft made BitNet that allows quantization or compression to be 4 times smaller than the smallest compression that I've come across in my testing. So some of the smallest stuff I've seen was compressed around 4-bit quant. Bitnet.cpp claims to be able to quantize down to 1 bit. Not every problem needs to be solved with a large model that costs a lot of money for inference or test time compute. You can solve problems and actually get really cohesive, complex, and thorough responses from a small language model that doesn't even require many resources and can run locally on device. Running them locally on device also gives you more privacy. Believe it or not, open source AI code also fits into the world of robotics. Meta actually made an open source program called Digit360 that helps robotic fingers sense what they're touching. Anyone who wants to can download this framework and use it, whether you're a small AI lab or a hobbyist at home. This is the kind of thing where the open source world has broken down the barriers so the little guys can have access to the tech that the big guys do. In the last part of 2024, we saw some whole new ideas altogether, like the large concept model. Instead of predicting the next token, this predicts the next high-level concept using the embedding space to look for a whole entire idea instead of just predicting the next portion of a word. This allows quickly accessing the text with a lower amount of resource consumption, but it struggles with semantic ambiguity. This could just end up being part of a larger system that has an in-context learning where it needs to think about a general, vague, broad idea first before it starts to learn the details. In-context learning, if you're not familiar, is an AI's ability to learn as it goes along like people do. Modern BERT is an example of vertical LLMs or vertical use of an LLM. That means training an LLM to specialize in one certain topic, because if you train an LLM on everything in the world and then only use it for one certain type of a thing, you're just wasting all the compute power in training it, and it also uses so much more resources when you try to chat with and pull information out of the data set of one of these enormous models. If you focus your data set on just what the job it needs to do, it ends up being so much more efficient to train and run. Now let's tie all of this together and think about why this is all important in the bigger picture, and these are not just individual interesting technology advancements. As automation agents are rolled out into businesses in 2025, that's where that vertical use of the LLMs is going to come into place, and the automation agents and assistants are going to be trained specifically for the job or the task that they're doing. Believe it or not, training of those really big models I showed you and the training of the really small models are both coinciding with each other. Because what's going to happen is you're going to have these small models on device at the same time as the big models are out in the cloud or on a web system. Some of the stuff that you need help with from an AI is going to be from a large model to solve complex problems, while other problems you want to solve or questions you have are going to be with your smaller on-device model that's not going to be as complicated of a task and don't need sources. You're later on going to have these things called routes. You give your task or prompt or query to the judge. The judge then routes that request to the model that's most appropriate for it, so it will determine if it needs to go to a big frontier model or a smaller local model. vertical LLMs, frontier models, and on-device edge models will all kind of be in their little own ecosystem that you'll be able to just access which parts of it you need. And that's why all of those technologies that I mentioned were significant. They all tie together as like a testing area before this stuff really gets rolled out into production. Another advantage to the judges and routers in dividing up the AIs between frontier models and on-device models is it balances out the compute. If everything was in the cloud or in data centers, then all the AI load and all the electricity usage would just be burdening the data centers. By having some of the stuff on devices, at least some of that compute and load can be offloaded to the edge models. The robotics and the modalities are also tied in together, because one thing that we're going to need for AGI, artificial general intelligence, is an embodied AI that has various modalities. So that robot that has the sensory touch in the fingertips and the vision capabilities, and to understand what it sees around it, and be able to hear like Moshi does, and be able to speak back to you like Moshi does. Those modalities are essential for building up towards artificial general intelligence. The language model craze that came up was really just like a foundation or a framework for building more modalities up on top of that to lead to AGI. The focus in this video and on my channel is in open source, because as I mentioned earlier, that's the incubator. A lot of the big companies that are going to release stuff are going to come up with novel ideas on their own, but they're also going to bite and pick off of what happened in open source world. And because the open source world is a lot of people in the community contributing code, contributing ideas, finding bugs, engaging in discussion, that is all going to help accelerate the technology, because this is really happening at such a rapid pace. And it's also going to give you the first glimpse of what's headed in the future when you're watching in real time what happens in the open source world. That's what this channel is about. So if you want to keep up, please subscribe.